Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chris Riley with System Source. Thanks so much for joining us today for this session on eliminating security silos and gaps to halt breaches. So while that's a bit of a mouthful, it's an important one because so many times we've tried to be diligent in our IT efforts, and we have different tools, many of them point tools, some of them suites. There's a variety of tools out there that are all aimed at making our worlds more secure. And sometimes they have a kind of an unintended consequence, which is we end up kind of getting very siloed information because it's all in one tool, but it's not necessarily shared with another. The other is that there may be gaps between the tools. So there's some things that we're not looking at that perhaps we thought that we were, but we're not actually looking at, or we simply may not have been looking at it at all. So we want to take a look at some of those things and how do we kind of bring this information together so that we eliminate those silos, eliminate those gaps, and eliminate those surprises in our security posture. I'm joined today by Thomas Dowsley from Barracuda, and we'll be diving into that material here shortly, but just a little bit about the agenda. So I'll kind of introduce things, and then Tom will be going into looking at kind of what does an integrated SOC kind of bring you, and particularly what benefits would it bring from kind of proactively preventing, detecting, and fighting the kinds of issues that I alluded to earlier. We'll look at some of those inadvertent risks that I just referred to, look at data silos, and then how do we kind of eliminate these silos and gaps. There will be a Q&A at the end, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. So hopefully you have some pizza in front of you if you asked for a pizza. If not, just note Julie's email address on the screen. She'll be happy to help you if a pizza doesn't make it your way as planned. But hopefully you'll enjoy that pizza. Give them a couple extra minutes. You may find that the driver's outside your door in the lobby area. Perhaps you're at the office. We're looking for your street address if you're working from home. All right, during today's webinar, the audio is in presentation mode, so you'll be able to hear Thomas and I, but we sadly can't hear you directly, but we do that so that any noise where a participant may be doesn't come through to the whole group. But you can reach me at any point during today's session through the chat tab. Any thoughts you have, just drop them in there. And then questions, which we'll have at the Q&A at the end, just drop those into the questions tab. I'll read those out to Thomas at the end, and then we'll be able to respond to those. This recording is being recorded. This webinar, rather, is being recorded, and you'll get a link to this recording as well as the PDF for the presentation deck in an email later on today. And then finally, there is an evaluation that comes out at the very end. If you can just take literally 1 to 2 minutes, really all that it takes. Let us know how we did, how we can improve. We try to make it also fun. You can draw by doing a drawing for a $50 Amazon gift card. Amazon seems to be the gift that always fits for everyone. And so we'll try to say thank you by doing the $50 Amazon gift card. Okay, a little bit about System Source for those who are new to us today. So just in brief, so we've been around since 1981. There's about 70 of us at System Source. And we work with IT professionals from kind of southern Pennsylvania all the way through Maryland down to the Washington, D.C. area, as well as companies that are headquartered in that region, but operating nationally. And so we worked with really helping them throughout the IT life cycle. And one place that many folks decide to start with us is when they need to acquire new technology, whether that's going to be software, hardware, whether that's going to be in the cloud or in the traditional on-prem world. Most of our work is happening in the data center rather than in user computing, but we also do in user computing, particularly for our managed clients. So a lot of the work that we're doing is going to be in that data center, whether it's cloud or on-prem. And so looking at IT infrastructure, servers, storage, security, wireless, routers, firewalls, all the types of things that make that modern data center go, including all the virtualization things, whether that's VMware, Microsoft, or others, and particularly be able to really design, implement it, and then kind of support those environments ongoing. A lot of folks are really not looking to acquire for acquisition's sake, but really to improve. So we talked a little bit about our consulting and cloud services. Training is where all the kind of the heavy in-depth training happens, and we have about 30 or 35 different subject matter experts in manufacturing area, everywhere from very specific manufacturer trainings, like maybe Microsoft, all the way through more general types of broad security training. And that happens in about 600 to 800 classes at any one point, all available remotely as well. Present is professional AV, all those Teams rooms, WebEx rooms, Zoom rooms, for all the large monitors and speaker systems and microphones, etc. All that happens in our AV group. And finally, we maintain all these things, whether on kind of a reactive basis, you call us when things go bump under service and support, or proactively under a managed services environment, where we are the IT department for dozens of clients in this region. So that's a little bit about System Source today. We do have some upcoming webinars coming up on the 22nd. There's 12 cybersecurity myths that may be putting you at risk. That's always an important topic there. Then we'll be looking at the end of the month between helping you decide whether to go to cloud, particularly in this case Azure, do another round of on-premise or a hybrid, some of each. So we'll kind of walk you through that decision-making process, the things you need to be considering, and looking at those technologies. And then coming up on the 4th, we'll dive further into Microsoft, but that'll be in the licensing area. Licensing is always a confusing area, but we'll kind of delve into that to help prepare you for your next renewal. So that's a little bit about what we have coming up. I will drop links to those webinars in the chat as Thomas is speaking today. And with that, let me go ahead and hand things off to Thomas, please.
Awesome. Thanks very much. And yeah, looking forward to walking everyone through what we're doing here in terms of XDR. I think it's an exciting topic. It's a very relevant topic. And it's something that, a lot of people have some sort of security in place, but is all of it talking to each other? Are they utilizing it to the best of their capabilities? Often not. So we're going to explore some lessons here today from some true incidents that our team's seen here at Barracuda, and just a little bit about Barracuda in case anyone's not familiar. We are a cybersecurity company. We partner with many folks, such as System Source here. They're one of our great partners. And really what it is that we're going to be doing is we'll show you a little bit about the comprehensive coverage that we do, how it makes all the difference in terms of having full visibility and protection. We see traditionally there's a gap in terms of the detection and response piece when we're talking XDR, and in certain environments, logs being collected in other areas, not being cross-correlated. So pretty exciting stuff that we'll talk about today. But yeah, once again, Barracuda, it's a cybersecurity company. We do things like XDR, email protection around 365. So you may have our products in place or you may not, but you'll get an idea today a little bit about what we're doing on the XDR side and strengthening customers like yourselves across all various industries. So I'm going to move along here. And I think this next slide does a really good job of showing what is encompassed on XDR. So before we get into some of these silos, the various areas, I think it's important here to show what is encompassed in XDR. This is the 50,000 feet. A lot of people, there's so many terms today, and I'm sure folks on the line can appreciate that. There's EDR, there's MDR, you're hearing SOC and SIEM and SOAR. Really, to level set why we define ourselves here as XDR, it's that extended detection and response across many of the attack verticals. So endpoint is traditionally what people have been focused on. Hey, how do we protect those workstations, those servers? But we take it a lot further now that we're protecting other attack vectors like the email security side of the house, doing vulnerability security, looking for gaps, potential areas of vulnerability within your network, doing things like cloud security, pulling logs from 365, looking for, maybe you guys may be familiar with the terms like impossible travel. Hey, someone signed in Pennsylvania, and then they're signed in California 5 minutes later. That's impossible. That's clearly a bad actor that's got into that account. So many things around that area. Server security, super important. You want those critical servers to have top tier security. And then the network side, there's a number of firewalls out there that people work with. We're pretty holistic where we can work with many of them, and we're ingesting those logs and ultimately getting an idea into that network traffic and looking for suspicious items. So really, this is all the pieces. I did want to get into this before we dive into some specific examples. But each of these play a key role in protecting an environment, and each of these speak to each other in ways that we can better identify and take action on threats. But one thing I do like to point out is each of these pieces, as well as given that they work together so well, the more you have, the better. But they are a la carte. So budget is a real thing. Some people, will start with a couple, but the more you have, very important, because we don't want you to be siloed with your data and your protection. So I'm going to move on to our workflow before we get into things. I think it's important to take a step back and have everyone understand really what it is we're doing with your data. So as we're pulling the various logs from the previous screen, so your email logs, your server logs, your endpoint logs, the networking, we're running those events through our XDR analysis. So one of those terms you're hearing, the fully managed SIM. So SIM, what we're doing there, we're leveraging AI, and we're actually pulling those logs, leveraging AI to create alarms. So things that are suspicious, potential anomalies. So it could have been like that impossible travel example. It could be a known malware. It could be a user that's not illustrating their normal behavior. They're signing in from various countries they don't normally do. That's going to raise alarms, but we're not necessarily going to take action there. We have a world-class SOC team that leverages humans on a 24/7 basis, professionals on our team that are going to actually decipher what may be a real threat, what may not, as well as leverage some automation where we will take action on threats that we see. The whole idea here is that we're trying to really get to what the true threats are. Nowadays in IT, I'm sure a lot of people can appreciate that the buzzword of alert fatigue. Alert fatigue is a real thing. There's a lot of solutions people have in place, a lot of alarms going off. So we try and really hone in on what the true threats are, and that's evident within our workflow here. Moving along to kind of a real example, I think this really illustrates what it is that XDR is doing. But we can consider this analogy here. It's protecting your house. You've got to ensure its security. We want to address every potential entry point. So you've got the front door, the garage, the back door, windows, attic, and many other areas. But each of these points represent a potential access point that needs to be secured to prevent those intrusions. So similarly, in cybersecurity, that comprehensive coverage is vital. We must ensure, that every aspect of the network and infrastructure is protected to maintain that high level of robust security. From that previous slide, that would be having each of those pillars of XDR, the email protection, the endpoint protection, the server, the network, and the cloud. Really important to protect each of the areas. Let's move on to the next. So this gives you a bit of an idea here of, you probably recognize a lot of these names here. Your business, like your customers, you're facing more than just these physical security threats. Attackers are targeting your cloud applications that you can see here, as well as your on-premise devices. So it could be even your Fortinet network that we're looking after. And these applications could be located in your office, a data center, the cloud, or even, could be anywhere. But the important thing is that each of these pieces we are looking to protect. And as the digital footprint is growing, we're continuing to protect these evolving areas. Kind of comes back to that theme in the beginning where traditionally everyone was focused on the endpoint, but there's so many other areas and entry points now that we have to be looking out to protect. So your business's digital footprint. This kind of goes on to that same theme. There's a ton here. You got to consider that vast array of applications, devices, and tools that are in use. The attack surface, it's expanding exponentially. I mean, every year there's more and more tools that folks are leveraging, and it's just creating more of those entry points for attackers. You have identity and access, network devices, cloud, SaaS applications, servers, and a lot more. So each of these are growing areas that we want to remain protected, and that's something that XDR seeks to do here. This once again, it's showing the significant impact across businesses. we're actually seeing 73% of small businesses reporting a data breach, with only utilizing 20 to 25 tools around that area. Mid-sized businesses reporting paying an average of $375,000 in ransomware attacks, an average per attack, which is just crazy. We're seeing large businesses with over 130 to 400 applications experiencing over 1,500 attacks a week. And these aren't really just statistics. These are meant to be a wake-up call. I think a lot of what we see is, the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, they don't make the news. So people sometimes think, hey, you know what, they're not attacking us. But we're actually seeing that more and more. A lot of those, like I said, don't make the news. They're not in the public eye, but they are the perfect attack targets because many times the small and medium businesses aren't investing in tools to better protect themselves. So, I'm sure a lot of people on the call have either had an attack themselves or known folks that have had one, but it's absolutely an area in the SMB market that bad actors are going for, and we're recommending adding in some enhanced security, such as XDR, that we're going to continue chatting about here. Right. So who are our adversaries? There are a lot of them. I mean, they're constantly growing as well. Nowadays, it's nation state threat actors who are geopolitically motivated. There's cyber criminals like Evil Corp who are motivated by profit. That's generally who's targeting the SMB market. They'll even put a dollar figure. They're not just going to ask for millions. It could be a few hundred thousand, something that they think the SMB team will pay because they need their data. They need to get everything back up and running. It's pretty scary stuff, and it is adding here in terms of the folks. There's things like hacktivists, like dark side, which are ideologically motivated. So depending on your industry, they may not agree with what's going on in that industry. It may target you that way. So there's a lot of different folks out there, and they each have different objectives. But ultimately, what their objectives are, I think it's pretty clear. They seek to access and exploit the data for their various motivations. It includes encrypting data for ransomware, taking out your information, or causing operational downtime, which we know can lead to significant costs. We've seen businesses that have been around for 100+ years have to shut down from ransomware attacks. So crazy stuff out there. It's meant to raise an alarm, but there is solutions out there, and XDR, specifically managed XDR, is something that can help. And we'll kind of talk through some examples here. But really, Barracuda's XDR is giving our customers visibility into their entire digital footprint into one platform, which is important. So we've kind of chatted about how there's all these access points. We're consolidating these across various tools. We're correlating events. We're applying threat intelligence, leveraging AI and machine learning. I know, once again, buzzwords, but they are very relevant. And we're backing this all with our 24/7, 365 global SOC that is detecting and responding to these attacks. So this SOC is real humans. They're professionals that we hire that have certifications. They're all Barracuda employees, and really they're the experts. They do this day in and day out, and they're kind of back here as your, I would say your partner in IT here. We're providing incident guidance. We're recommending areas to be proactive, keeping your security, making sure you're doing the best of what's relevant, because what's going to be in 6 months from now may be different from now. So we're staying on top of this for you guys. But yeah, I mean, the idea here, taking a step back, is it's that visibility through one platform, which is super important. So I'm going to go through a couple stories from the SOC team, which really walk through some real customer examples. Of course, we take out the customer names, but these are kind of incidents that we've seen. And once again, as we're progressing through this presentation, I would encourage anyone with questions to continue putting those in the chat, and we'll make sure we get to those after the presentation here. So yeah, on that note, I'm going to get through our first example here. So in this scenario here, like I mentioned, managed XDR, each of these pieces are very important. The more you have, the better, because some folks will just go with endpoint, for example, in this case, customer chose managed endpoint security, but didn't deploy it to all their devices. So they left some devices unprotected. The attacker was able to exploit a Cisco known vulnerability to access the network and installed hacking tools on unprotected devices. So what happened was the attack tool that were used, I don't know if this will mean much to some folks, to others, they may know these names, but there was Mesh Agent, an executable file, there was NetScan, there was AnyDesk. But the impact was that the ransom attack took hold of the system and they exfiltrated data. This caused operational disruption, loss of intellectual property, which obviously is very important, as well as loss of customer data and compliance violations. So compliance is a big term, a big thing, depending on industry, but I know we're all working towards there. That's coming down. So XDR, that's another piece we would discuss, is how XDR helps people with compliance. But back in terms of this scenario here, some of the lessons we learned were that comprehensive security is critical, as well as security posture should extend beyond that, just the endpoint here. The full spectrum of XDR coverage would have alleviated the risk and be able to counter the attack here. So I'm going to show another example here, leveraging a different SKU in which we saw. So this would be the cloud SKU here. This was a customer in the manufacturing industry. I'm sure I can respect we've got folks on many different industries on the call here, but they opted for cloud security, which left a risk with the other attack vectors once again. So they didn't have the email security, the endpoint, the network. And what happened here, so this event behind the scenes, the threat actor used compromised credentials to gain unauthorized access and entry into a Windows RDP server. So the multi-factor authentication, I'm sure some folks on the call are familiar with multi-factor authentication, that on the VPN was not enabled. So there's a couple attack tools that were used here. Once again, there was PowerShell Empire, there was Hydra, there was a couple others that folks may or may not be familiar with, but what's really important was the impact. Operations were significantly disrupted. Production activities at this manufacturing company were actually halted. The loss of backup data was delayed. Financial losses were incurred. When there's production had to be halted, of course, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars per hour. So some of the lessons that we learned, once again, were after the incident, if the customer had opted for the full XDR coverage to include the endpoints, the email, the network, and the server, the SOC team would have had more visibility to identify that threat and better take action on it. That's another example. Here's another third scenario. So this one actually, they've got all the SKUs except the server and the vulnerability. In this case here, with this specific event, a critical server was left unprotected. Its RDP was exposed to the public internet. Attackers leveraged the open RDP channel to infiltrate the network by brute forcing the login using a hacking tool. Number of tools were used here. John the Ripper, that's an interesting name, but that was used. But the impact, once again, this is what we're focused on. It was the valuable intellectual property and sensitive customer data that was stolen on the dark web. This leads to reputational damage and undermines client trust. I'm sure you guys can appreciate when you see data breaches, if your name's in one with a company you like to shop at, whether that be online, in person, it makes you think again about shopping there. And same goes with customers leveraging a business for their trust. You're gonna kind of lose that over time if you see that they got breached. Some of the lessons learned: a holistic cybersecurity strategy is required. That comprehensive protection across all facets of the IT infrastructure is becoming a non-negotiable item. It's really needed. Yes, you got to spend a little bit more than you are today, but in the end, that impact is massive because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And folks are becoming attacked here. And I think there's a great story to be told here in terms of the impact of comprehensive coverage. We actually, over the past 3 years, and once again, it's not on wood, it's not to say it'll never happen, but there's data to support that having each of these modules, these pillars of XDR leads to better success of protection, because over 3 years, our incident tracking reveals that we didn't have a single major incident across our customers that had all 5 pillars. And once again, I'll say, it's not to say it'll never happen, but we've seen threats where people have just the cloud security, just the email, just the endpoint, like I showed in the previous examples. But having all is really increasing your chances of being better protected against the adversaries out there. And you can trust that we're continuing to evolve our products to meet the ongoing threats in the market. So, you know, that's I know that's a lot to kind of take in, but what I'll say is, I think each of these pieces we would love to dive in further. I know today is less of kind of a demo example, more of kind of going through some simulations, but the theme is super important. And yeah, would love to dive in deeper with any folks that are interested in XDR.
Thank you, Thomas. I don't see any questions at the moment. So we want to say thank you very much for that information. We can certainly, dig deeper into particular situations, and we will get an evaluation here shortly. So if there's information you want to look at, for example, you just want to see, well, see a demonstration of XDR, or just dig deeper into how that might apply in your world. We can also do a security planning whiteboard session. So we just kind of take a step back, look at what you've got, look at those gaps and silos, look at areas that kind of give you a more holistic picture of your session or of your environment. There's no charge for that. And of course, there's security training courses if you want to dig deeper in general. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much to Thomas, and we'll give you back a half hour of your afternoon. Hope that is helpful to your to-do list. Thank you for everybody. Hope you enjoyed the pizza as well. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.